This is an important paper on the long COVID prevalence with increased number of infections. It provides a detailed analysis of survey data from the 2023 Canadian COVID-19 Antibody and Health Survey. And it's a collaboration between the Public Health Agency of Canada and the Statistics Canada. What's interesting is that in the 2022 survey of this, about 16% of people surveyed were experiencing long COVID. Since then, the number has increased, so they began looking at the number of infections to see if it had any correlation with that. The survey is relevant to the adult population aged 18 years and older, residing in private households, which just means normal homes, in the 10 Canadian provinces. And as of June 2023, about 2 in 3 Canadians have reported at least one infection, with 1 in 5 Canadians having been infected multiple times. So this is a chart of the number of infections per age group. So blue would be 0 infections, light gray would be 1 infections, dark gray would be 2 infections, and then the white would be 3 or more infections. What's interesting is that the oldest group has the highest frequency of not getting infected, having any infections with COVID. Having at least one infection is pretty equivalently spread between all the age groups. But where it deviates is that the 18 to 34 and the 35 to 49 year age groups have more frequently had 2 or more infections than the older age groups that are 50 to 50 plus. And then this plot right here is the meat and potatoes of the whole paper. So the gray right here is the 2022 prevalence of 16.7%, but then we look over here with increasing number of infections, there is an increased prevalence of getting long COVID, where if you have 1 infection, the prevalence is around 14.6%. If you have 2 infections, that increases to 25.4%, and if you have 3 infections, that increases to 37.9%. And then they broke it down to time when you have these different infections. So 1, 2, 3 or more infections for first one starting in 2020. So the first year of the pandemic, the second year, and then the third year. So 2020, 2021, 2022. And they're seeing that with increased number of infections, it's pretty uniformly going to an increased frequency of prevalence of developing long COVID. Now, what's very interesting is this 45.3% in the original group that got COVID or long COVID. But this is most likely because of this 3 or more number, because if you had your first infection early on in 2020, it's been a longer period of time where you can develop more subsequent infections. So it's very likely that this 3 number is likely higher towards 4 or 5 infections, which is why this 45.3 is much higher than these other groups, which sort of implies to us that if we were taking this as 3 infections and we went out to 4 infections, that this would continue to increase in a linear fashion. Where they went further and then looked at if people that developed long COVID resolved their symptoms, and 58.2% of people that develop long COVID do not resolve their symptoms over time.